Hey guys, welcome to WordCamp's Edit Your Manuscript Like a Pro class. This is going to be a 2-hour one-off class with our great guest editor, Max Higgins, who is going to
Hi.
be answering questions. Hi, Max. And we'll have a couple slides. We'll have like a whole slideshow back here, but it's much more sort of like free form. We don't actually have to stick to the stuff in the slideshow if we don't want to. Let's just dive right in. I'll get the boring business stuff out of the way, then we can do our introductions and we can get to the fun stuff because we have plenty of stuff that we can cover today. So let's just get the basics out of the way for everybody who's new here. Welcome. This is WordCamp. We're a writing community focused on helping you take your concept from idea to first draft to polished manuscript. We have lots of free classes, events, and workshops, and for the rest of the month, every Saturday from this time slot, 12 to 2, we're going to be having free fiction writing classes. We have some paid classes too, including boot camps and the Writer's Lab. Our main server is Skill Camp. That's how we started. That was screenwriting focused, but WordCamp is an offshoot of that. Skill Camp is the name of our company. We have many free and low-cost classes. Oh, and a dog barking in the background too. We have many dogs as well. We're basically free and low-cost classes to help you reach your life goals in many different categories. So check out these different servers with many different skills like filmmaking, animation, design, language learning, programming, coding. We have multiple free classes a week and over 70 hours of classes a month. Here's just a little bit about me. I am a screenwriter and novelist, though I have not been published as a novelist. I have been repped as a professional working screenwriter since 2017, though. I moved to LA in 2015, right after college, and have then, since then, placed in the top 10 of the Launchpad contest, the Nichols semifinals. I wrote for Shudder's Creepshow back in 2019, and I teach the weekly boot camps and writers' labs on Script Camp and on WordCamp. We have many other teachers, though, and many other events coming up. I'll come back to you, Max, in just one second. I just want to show you guys what we have coming up. We have new feature boot camp starting Fridays at 6. That's going to be starting February 17th. New novel boot camp, which is running Saturdays 12 to 2 in this time slot once all of the free classes are done. That's going to be starting at the end of the month, February 25th. And we're going to have a new pilot boot camp starting March 5th, 11 to 1. That's going to be Sundays. I'm teaching 3 boot camps at any one time, and we have plenty of other things going on, like weekly classes in Code Camp and in Tune Camp for animation and programming. So check out everything we have to offer, whether you're going to just come by as a free user or you can consider subscribing and get access to all of the classes we teach, all of the workshops, everything at scriptcamp.net/membership. You can sign up today for a 2-week free trial by going to scriptcamp.net. Go to membership and click the button that says free trial, and you will get access to every single thing that we do, over 70 hours of live classes a month. All right, so here's what we have coming up. We have Subplots class coming up on the 15th at 6 o'clock. And these are all in Pacific time, if you're not aware. We have Write a Movie in 8 Weeks. That's the intro of our new feature bootcamp on the 17th at 6. We have a class for Best Protagonist for your story, whether you're writing feature, TV, or a book. These are all going to be on Script Camp. That's February 22nd at 6, and we're starting off that new pilot bootcamp March 5th. You can see all the stuff we have coming up on WordCamp on the right, written in teal. We have Action and Adventure genre class on the 18th at noon. We have Outlining on the 22nd at 6 o'clock. That's actually a Wednesday. And then we have Thursday Query Letter Masterclass on Thursday the 23rd at 6 with the intro session of our new bootcamp for writing a book in 12 weeks on February 25th, right at the end of the month. All right, so that's everything that we have coming up here. We hope to see you guys for some of our free classes, and if you're enjoying this sort of thing, consider subscribing and signing up to get your membership and come by everything we do. All right, so we are going to introduce Max. Max, here's your little bio and headshot. Anything you want to say about yourself? Introduce yourself.
Said most of it in the bio, but I'm a freelance editor. I've been working in the field since I graduated college in 2016. My experience in the publishing industry has been primarily working with independent and hybrid publishing work, rather than in like the big four up in New York City. But I did attend the Columbia Publishing course in 2017, which is basically just the standards of how the publishing industry works and things like that. So I was able to get a little bit of an insight into that through that. And beyond that, I'm really excited to be able to answer some questions for you guys today.
Awesome, thank you. And yes, Max and I, we both went to George Mason and have known each other for very many years. We have always been big fans of things like funny fan fiction. We used to kind of like in our dorm rooms just read funny fan fiction as a pastime. So I thought that would make a good activity today. We're going to do a fan fiction guessing game, old school. We're going to do a couple activities where we read the first pages of stuff and give comments on them. And you're going to try to guess what franchises is this actually a crossover between. I think you remember this game.
This is my favorite game.
Okay. I didn't write a full overview for this class, did I not? I have an overview for the boot camp coming up, so let's look at that real quick. Then I'll give you guys a verbal overview of what we're doing coming up in this class today, which is basically going to be, I have some questions for Max and topics and slides that we're going to go over. And on these following topics, we're going to be looking at editing on both line and developmental level. I want to talk about fantasy and sci-fi because you mentioned especially that you have worked on a sci-fi series before, like editing sci-fi series before. So we'll talk a little just about genre-specific stuff. Then we'll go into first pages, like what should we and shouldn't we be doing on a first page. After that, we're going to go into first pages from a couple books that we'll be looking at and just playing our fan fiction game where we can both comment on the content of the fan fiction itself. We're not here to make fun of it. Like, if it's funny, that's fine. I mean, it's a weird crossover, so it's kind of funny. But we're here to also just genuinely offer our insights on what they could do to improve or what they could do to, make it the best, whatever it is that they're writing. We have a couple other questions about things like developing characters, and then, of course, we're going to have open season for questions from everyone in the room. So I would say during the class, feel free to chime in the text chat with the questions that you have, and then when we get to this section, I'll go back and read through all the questions, so maybe just tag me or Max in the comment if you want us to be able to go back and find them easily. We'll also have some time for you to unmute your mics and ask voice questions if you would like during that section. Okay, so that's the overview for today. Let's briefly look at, wrong one, there we go. Let's look at what we have in the novel class coming up, and then we will start with today's editing workshop. So this is just a brief overview of what we're doing in the novel class. You can see the first 6 weeks are all planning and outlining. We are very much emphasizing this architect style of figuring out what happens in every single chapter before we really get into it. So weeks 1 through 6 are all about, just going over those basics of point of view, premise, and prose. We go into log lines and queries on week 2, and we start looking at the high-level organization of our manuscripts. We are going to design a cast of characters and build out the world, and then try to plan out what happens in every chapter by the end of week 6 with a complete set of what we call scene cards. You're ready to start writing those pages by April 15th, and you'll be spending the next 6 weeks writing 10 to 15,000 words a week, which is actually a lot of work. But if you keep it up and if you follow the steps and if you use the organization methods that we have been emphasizing here, I think that you'll find that it goes a lot quicker and a lot more effortlessly. The pages will fly by if you have made sure to organize your route forward properly. We'll be finishing that first draft by May 27th. Okay, so we have a couple questions in the chat already. It looks like a few folks have been leaving some. They're really good questions, so I just want to make sure not to lose them. I'm just going to tag myself in one of these to make sure that I can come back to it. So thank you, Pollock and Roman, for the questions so far. Let's get started with a little bit of just talking about editing before we get into the questions, though. Definitely keep them coming. But let's just maybe do some introduction here. So people who don't know what an editor is, Max, what is editing? What are the different types, and what do you do?
This is a question that I have to field all the time, and I'm very excited to have an answer to it. There are different kinds of editing. A lot of times when people think about like an editor, there was a period of time around 2010 when people thought that the editorial industry was going to end because of things like Microsoft Word spell check. And that's just not what editors do. There is something called like copy editing, which is just the most basic level of editing. It's making sure that the words that you use are spelled correctly, the grammar makes sense, and that you're not using like homonyms and things like that by mistake. That's copy editing, and it's just, really just the absolute base level, making sure that things are structured in a way that is like commonly accepted to be correct. When you get higher up, there are things closer to like thematic editing or developmental editing. And those things come more into terms of making sure that when you write something, it sounds like it's in your voice. So sometimes you'll be reading a book and the editor's job is to make sure that there's nothing that takes you out of that. But if someone uses, like, if it's a fantasy novel and it has like some kind of anachronism where it's like someone called someone, right? Even if it's clear from the text that it's like, oh, they called out to someone, there's still that weird anachronistic thing in your head where it's like they called them on the phone.
Or called
And so
on.
it's kind
I
of
thought
keeping
you
an
were
eye
gonna
out for
say
those
called
kinds of
on
things.
someone. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, exactly. So I would suggest something like, hey, this feels, I can see what you're going for, but I think that we could use a better word so that
Mhm.
this doesn't trip anyone up. So on all levels of editing, what we're trying to do is to make it so that the work itself uh, can kind of shine through and it doesn't have to be caught up in those little things that make it more difficult to read and to understand.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the overall purpose of editing, is just to kind of like polish things up, make it look like, make it so that there aren't any distractions from the actual content of the story.
Cool. So it's really kind of like removing obstructions to the story more than it is adding stuff to it. You're not like writing for them, right? You're not like telling them, I think the character should do this instead necessarily, or are you actually making story suggestions too?
It depends. At higher level developmental editing, which is usually I would start talking to the author while they're still in the process of writing the book.
Mhm.
They might say like, "Hey, I've been writing this, and I feel like I've been writing this character, in one way where I was thinking that they were going to be kind of like a bad guy, and then later they were going to have like a redemption."
Mhm.
And then they're like, "I'm writing it, and it doesn't make sense to me, and so I feel like I'm not sure what to do with this character now. Like, how do I go? What do you think?" Because I also part of my job is having an awareness of like sort of themes and tropes and being able to assess literature from that perspective